The Colombian army buries its dead. There have been many similar funeral services this year, a violent one even by Colombia's appalling standards. It's estimated that there's a political killing here every 6 hours. Only nations involved in civil wars have higher death rates. Colombia's dead are victims of left-wing guerrilla groups, right-wing paramilitary death squads, or the influential and deadly gangs of cocaine traffickers. Unlike other Latin American countries, Colombia's social problems can't be blamed on its financial position. It's avoided the horrors of vast foreign debt and can boast a growing economy. Unemployment is starting to fall, although it's still running at very nearly 10%. Per capita incomes are significantly higher than at the start of the decade, and Colombia doesn't suffer from the crippling price inflation which is prevalent elsewhere in the region. Inflation has hovered around 20% in recent years, still high by the standards of the industrialized West, but quite low for South America. Last year, Colombia doubled its foreign earnings from oil and refined petroleum products. The figures very nearly matched those for coffee, the country's traditional mainstay. But this year, oil output has dropped because of a series of pipeline attacks by leftist rebels. In contrast, coal production is up by almost 50%. However, Colombia's coal industry does have a foreign debt problem. Even with increased earnings, it'll have to be bailed out this year by the solvent state oil group. Colombia's big money spinner is its coffee crop. It remains the world's second largest producer behind Brazil. Coffee has played a major part in the revival of the country's fortunes. Years of high prices on the international market boosted the economy. Earnings from coffee have fallen slightly this year as Brazil recovered from a bad year, leading to a drop-off in prices. So Colombia seems likely to continue to improve into the 1990s without having to turn to the international banks for help. And that's just as well, because the banks are trying to avoid even the model destinations of Latin America. One of the factors which have turned the Colombian economy around is, of course, drug money. Cocaine is produced from the coca leaf. Most is grown in Bolivia, Colombia, and Peru. In Colombia, it's said to be the second biggest export after coffee. Yet, according to official statistics, coca doesn't even exist. Under pressure from the rest of the world, especially the United States, the Colombian authorities make well-publicized efforts to destroy the coca plantations. But it's a difficult task against the highly organized militias of the drug gangs. Colombia is the biggest center for the refining and exporting of cocaine, and now accounts for 70% of the drug consumed worldwide. Most of Colombia's leading traffickers are based in Medellin, the country's second largest city. If the Medellin cartel, a syndicate of cocaine dealers, was a recognized corporation, it would rank as one of the 500 richest companies in the world, alongside the big multinational oil companies. The cocaine industry has made fortunes for some people. But the drug traffickers are shrewd enough to plow back some of their vast wealth into the local community. This makes the cocaine barons popular figures. Often it's genuine affection, but mostly it's a case of people being too frightened not to cheer. The drug cartels wield enormous political power in Colombia. Even so, they can't prevent the occasional customs raids like this one at Bogota Airport. The cocaine industry has elaborate overheads, payoffs to government officials, politicians, judges, and policemen. There's also protection money for guerrilla groups who often work hand in hand with the traffickers. Many of the top drug dealers have used their profits to establish legitimate businesses, most notably in the property market. A plane from Colombia arrives at Miami Airport in the United States. Early this year, tough new checks were introduced on all airline passengers arriving from Bogota. The United States had become alarmed at the increase in the amount of cocaine entering the country. Customs officers use sniffer dogs to detect possible drug caches in cargo from Colombia. The motorcycle gangs which hang around on the corners of Colombian cities will kill for as little as $100. In this year alone, more than 2,000 people have been killed in political violence. Among the victims, several hundred soldiers and police officers. Attacks on the security authorities are commonplace, particularly in remote areas. These rebels belong to the Colombian Revolutionary Armed Forces, known by its Spanish acronym of FARC. It's been one of the most active of the several left-wing insurgent forces which have tried to topple successive governments. It's the largest guerrilla force in the region. The rebels aren't afraid to go for the big target either. This dynamite attack was aimed at the defense minister, General Herrero Paz. He survived. 3 of his bodyguards riding a motorcycle escort were killed. Herrero Paz had only been in the job for 2 weeks. One of his first promises had been to seek peace with the rebels through negotiation rather than confrontation. President Virgilio Barco continues to press for a negotiated peace. But with so many different rebel factions to deal with, just as one agrees to a ceasefire, another begins a new campaign of terror. There have been at least half a dozen ceasefire attempts in the last 4 years. They've all collapsed. The bloodletting looks set to continue. Colombia is fighting a war on many fronts. If the rebels and drug traffickers continue to thrive, the good work that's turned the country's economy around will have been for nothing.